Hello, everyone. We are Team 2. We have Gabriel Lima, Mai Thung Dương, and Trần Minh Tuấn. And we will present our progress update on our work in reinforcement learning with augmented data. Let me remind you of the concept of reinforcement learning. We have an agent, we have an environment. The agent is at a state, it takes an action, it gets a reward from the environment, and then it moves to the new state. Reinforcement learning suffers from two main problems. First is poor data efficiency. As you see, the agent is at a state, take an action, get the reward, and then move to the state, take another action, and then get another reward, and then move to another state. This learning takes a lot of iterations. So we need some way to learn policies more efficiently. The second problem is poor generalizability. If we train an agent in one environment, can we deploy it in a different one? And a more practical question could be how to train agents in a laboratory setting and then make them work in the real world. To solve these two problems in computer vision, people usually use data augmentation. It augments a data set from more data points and making the best out of their existing data. Our paper uses reinforcement learning with augmented data, which is RAD. RAD is a model agnostic methodology, so it can be used alongside any IR method. I will present some results. First, on the DeepMind control suite, it randomly sample augmentation methods, but applying them in a temporally consistent way, that is in one episode, apply the same augmentation method in every frame. And it reached the SOTA results in data efficiency. The paper also tests on two other test suites, which is OpenAI ProcGen and OpenAI Gym. It kind of tests the generalizability test in a OpenAI ProcGen, and OpenAI Gym has some other inputs such as position and movement, and it also outperformed the SOTA in most environments in these two test suites.
So we actually decided to replicate the results on the DeepMind control suite. We decided that because it's the most robotics related environment that they use in the paper, and we actually selected 4 environments: card pull, walker, cheetah, ball and cup, and we also selected 4 augmentation methods: crop, grayscale, cutout, and color jitter. Basically, our main question is which augmentation is the best in improving generalizability and efficiency in our RL agents. We actually are training the agents on using 200,000 training steps to actually try to balance how much computing power and time we have and how many things we can replicate, right? We want to replicate as many things as possible considering our resources. We actually maintain all the other parameters to the same as they use in the paper. An issue that we had was that the authors did not make their code that they use for DM control available. Right? In their paper, they report results randomly selecting augmentation methods throughout the training process. But that is not the code that they make available. The code that they make available only allows us to select like 1 or 2 specific augmentations. So we actually adapted our project to replicate the results that they present in figure 2. In figure 2, they actually present combinations of 2 augmentations in order to see how much each one of them contributes to the learning of the RL agent, right? So what we decided to do is to expand on this because they only report results for the walker environment. So we are actually expanding it to 3 other environments, as I mentioned before, right? We are using 4. And we are also testing to see how the rewards evolved when we're only using 1 augmentation method, like separately. We actually faced several problems during the replication. The first one is that the repo had many conflicts, right? And we had to solve each conflict by hand, one by one. As I mentioned before, we cannot replicate all the results because we don't have enough computing and time. So that's why we selected a few representative ones and the best augmentation methods. Another issue that we had was that Mojoko is updating right now. Right, it's becoming open source, and many of the libraries that they use in the paper do not actually support the new version. So we actually found a way to use a legacy one. We also had a problem with the power outage that happened in Kais a few weeks ago. Our server, for some reason, did not save some experiment data, and we had to rerun them. But most importantly, the biggest issue that we faced was with Mujoko. Mujoko would not install in our lab server, and that we found out that it was because our Linux distro had some problems with it. And that's why we use Docker. So Docker is a OS level virtualization tool that creates containers, which are loosely isolated environments, which are really similar to a VM. So it's really analogous to a VM. And basically, we can have a different environment using whatever OS we would like, for example, Ubuntu in our case, that we can easily build anywhere. So we can easily replicate to different parts, like different servers, for instance. And actually using Docker took some time, right? We had to get the hang of it. But once we learned, we saw its potential, right? It allowed us to replicate the results. And this is something that we can definitely use for other projects as well, not only for this class. So it was really useful. Like it was quite productive. These are some initial results that we have, right? This is on the CardPoll environment. And similar to the results that the authors report, crop was the best segmentation. The color jitter was also quite good. So this is an example video that you can see that in the start, the agent is suffering quite a lot to balance itself. But in the end, it's always getting it right. Another example that we have of results is on the Walker environment, right? This is actually running right now. That's why the time series is not complete. But again, the cropping augmentation is usually the best one, and the color jitter is the second one. This is a video for grayscale, and you can see that in the start, the agent cannot do anything. And later, it starts walking sometimes a little bit, but actually the grayscale one doesn't achieve like as many rewards. So it just kind of shows that like different augmentations basically have do not actually achieve the same result, right? Augmentations are good for different things.
So let's talk about the improvement plan. And as we see in our experiments, the random graph augmentation have the better performance for reinforcement learning compared to other methods. So the reason behind this is successful is it focuses more on the objects while removing the unnecessary information like the background. So it's not a beneath that we have to focus on the important part of the image. And based on its observation, we propose the novel objects focused augmentation method for reinforcement learning, and it attempts to cover the whole object and remove the background as much as possible. And here the example of the object focus compared to random graph. You can see it tries to cover the object, and by the random graph, it might be then as some part of the object. And on the other hand, because the variable only present the result of the combination of the two augmentations, we plan to test the combination of 3 or more augmentation methods. For example, we want to test the combination of a random graph, random translate, and object focus. So that's it. Thank you for your listening.